Truth and the Buff. I'm Trevor, with me is Buff Perry, and we have our special guest today with Rodney. Coming up on this episode, we're going to be talking about the Parliament of World Religions and their upcoming assembly in Salt Lake City, Utah, where Buff, you will be speaking, and you're bringing a couple of your cohorts with you. And welcome, and how you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. The title of the conference, by the way, is Reclaiming the Heart of Humanity. Rodney McLeod here is my research assistant, and he's been part of our investigation into the story on Chief Joseph, the great chief of the Nez Perce Nation. His tablet that was taken from him by General Miles and then deposited in the West Point Military Academy Museum in New York. The subject of our particular presentation, and there will be several of us speaking, I'm organizing the roster, is about Chief Joseph and his medicine bag in which was found this interesting tablet.
How many days, first of all, are you going to be speaking with your friends at the assembly in Utah?
In Salt Lake City?
Yeah.
We have a whole section of the Indigenous component to the whole conference. So I think we'll have a couple hours to give our presentation. We also have a booth that'll be branded by an interesting array of people, ranging from a talk show host, very well known across North America, to the University of Alberta's initiatives through the Faculty of Medicine with traditional medicines and so forth. They're interested in the way that this tablet of Chief Joseph was used as a form of medicine to do all kinds of things. So we have, they're branding our booth as well. We have a number of interesting sponsors.
Well, can we talk about some of your code crack?
There is a big code that will be cracked, but I should also mention that there are some sub-themes to this conference that is being put on by the Parliament of World Religions, and one of the three sub-themes is war and peace. Climate change is another, and so on, but we're really focusing in on the war and peace part of it. The code that I'm going to be announcing at the conference and that I'm premiering with you today, that code has to do with this large number and growing number of artifacts that are being found in South and North America that bear cuneiform inscriptions. Most of them are tablets with messages. The odd part of it is they all date to the same precise time. The artifacts in Bolivia, the artifacts found in Ohio, in Montana, in Oklahoma, in Georgia, all have on them what is a date indicator. And the date, it goes back 4,050 or so years, approximately. So why would all these artifacts that have cuneiform inscriptions have the same date when they're found all over the place? Something massive happened.
Right.
Well, it happens that there is an initiative right now going on investigating the destruction of Sodom, the famous Sodom and Gomorrah of the Old Testament, of the book of Genesis, the first book in the Bible. And that book that is going to be released in December outlines trade networks that were at work in relation to where Sodom has been identified and what role Sodom played in the trade network. Sodom was one of these capital hubs of a vast trade network that empires, at least 5 different empires, all had trails to get to. One was called the King's Highway, and so this brought the Hittite Empire, the Assyrian Empire, different empires in. The remnants, the last phase of the Sumer Empire down around the Gulf, the Persian-Arabian Gulf area.
Right.
So if it was between 4,000 and 4,300 years ago that this great tumultuous event happened, the earthquake at Sodom, the balls of methane that were released that burst into flames, the sliding of the city virtually into the Dead Sea. All of that happens at the same time, approximately, we can narrow that 300-year period,
Right.
happens at approximately the same time. So this would account for why over here we end up with all of these artifacts that have been vetted by very prestigious universities, by top-notch investigators and scientists in different fields, and the vetting has proven all of these to be very authentic. Everybody's scrambling to find explanations. Well, I broke the code. I got the explanation, and it's a lot simpler than anybody could have dreamt. Let me just continue at one point here. Rodney, who's been my research assistant through this, and I took a trip down to Idaho to look into some archives and so forth. And perhaps, Rodney, you might want to speak a little bit about that, what it was we did. And
yeah, we just went down to the Nez Perce Research Center, and we got little bits of info here and there in the research we got to do, and it just led us down the trail of more of the spirituality and religious aspects of what the Nez Perce were into, and we're trying to connect that into I guess what the deeper meaning is and the significance is of this tablet, because there hasn't been enough investigation into it. Here, Vine Deloria, he speaks about the tablet in Red Earth, White Lies as being something that's showing us as connected, interconnected, intercontinentally. And yeah, I just believe that there is something much bigger going on here than what European, Eurocentric history has been telling us.
And Rodney, by showing us, you mean us Indigenous people, because like Rena is going to be speaking with us in our roster, and she's Assyrian, and Assyrians today are considered Indigenous. And maybe you can mention a little bit about the Assyrian nature to the tablet that was found in Chief Joseph's medicine bag.
Yeah, well, the Assyrians, the tablet is known to come from the area of Syria. And the Assyrian Times actually have been writing and celebrating and telling their people that there are relatives way back when. So they're celebrating this and their relations somehow. It's not too clear now, but there is that Indigenous link intercontinentally, which we're also really searching for, right? Because we all want to be connected, and many of our elders, our Indigenous elders, are saying that we're all interconnected, we're all connected, and there's a way. So.
Sounds like what you guys will be speaking on is going against the grain of a lot of teachings, so there's going to be some reclassifying of history, I guess.
There will be. We can bring up the Mormon point in just a moment, but I did want to follow Rodney's statements with a little bit more information. The tablet is seen as an Assyrian cuneiform, as an Assyrian cuneiform tablet. And that's very important. They've reached out, the Assyrians have, as Rodney pointed out, in their diaspora newspaper called the Assyrian Times, to the Nez Perce nation because of this odd coincidence of their greatest chief of all time having this tablet with him. So we've recruited someone named Rena Solomon to speak with us. She's an on-fire woman who is Assyrian, and it's going to, rock the Casbah in Salt Lake City, believe me. And the Mormons may be thinking twice about everything that they've now, unleashed here in their capital city, including Rena. She's got a lot to say. Rena is very, very much about this indigenous link to link.
Right.
And the kind of, the genocidal treatment that is happening right now against the Assyrians in Syria and Iraq, she's part of that. She's got relatives there. She's an Assyrian woman. She's been in North America for quite a while, but she's still indigenous in Assyrian. If she goes to Iraq or to Syria, there she would be considered the only indigenous nation of the region. So we're all really looking forward to Rena Solomon's presentation during our speakers roster, and of course to Rodney's, and maybe I and a couple other people are looking forward to what I'm about to say.
You're right.
We'll soon find that out.
Right.
On the Mormon issue,
Yeah.
we're very thankful the Mormons have opened up all their doors to this conference in their capital city. And they're also delighted, I've come to learn, about our specific presentation concerning Chief Joseph, because it goes to the way that the Latter-day Saints interpret history,
Right.
and their own history, the beginnings of Mormonism in North America. And they have a notion that 4,000 years ago, to the exact same dating time as all these artifacts bear, which is bizarrely coincidental, that these artifacts are the evidence that there were 3 tribal peoples that fled from the Middle East for various reasons that the Mormons will give, called the Lamanites, Jaredites, and Nephites, and ended up in North America, and they're the indigenous people. A lot of indigenous people are not altogether pleased with that idea of having always come from somewhere else and not really being the first, bona fide people of North America. So there's a little bit of an issue there. But I think from the Mormon perspective, there's even a greater issue because we now have identified what the causal relation is to why there were so many artifacts that did end up over here. It's not because of Lamanites, Jaredites, and Nephites. Whether they came here or not is really a separate issue. They're not the people who brought these artifacts. But I want the Mormons to all come and have a look and listen to discuss this with us in Salt Lake City, so that we can, get some clarity in the picture here. If it was the great earthquake tidal wave that happened from the Dead Sea, and there was one of those that occurred after the earthquake, and the sliding of towns right into the Dead Sea, and the balls of methane that came up and burned everything, apart. There was a tsunami that occurred as well. I mean, that was a cataclysmic event, and it dislodged continuity in cultural development in terms of Bronze Age, early Bronze Age, Middle Bronze Age, Late Bronze Age, those kinds of classifications. You can see right where this all happened, at the end of the early Bronze Age and beginning of the Middle Bronze Age, and it is a mark-off point. And there's just this avalanche of evidence now, thanks to this decode, to show that yes, there were people over here that had artifacts, but who were they? They weren't Lamanites, Jaredites, and Nephites. They were Assyrians, they were Sumerians, they were Hittites, when the Hittites and the Assyrians were getting along, and they were all getting the heck out of the area where everything had burst into flames and was rocking, so to speak. Not quite the way Rena will rock Salt Lake City, but still rocking because of an earthquake in the Dead Sea area, and what specifically is known as Sodom. This will also change a lot of that guilt, shame stuff that is associated with the names Sodom and Gomorrah. If the reason why it all happened has to do with this earthquake and the methane balls and so on, or you can look at it the other way, from a religious perspective. Mormons may take it this way. Well, this was God's way. These were God's tools of punishment. The earthquake, the liquefaction of the sand and everything underneath the layers, and that caused the sliding into the Dead Sea of Sodom.
Right.
Of the town from which we get terms like sodomy and so on. This is a long accounting we won't get into right now, but ultimately the blame game on all of that really should be ceased once you get the full picture of what happened at Sodom and where it went and how and why it went where it went, the circumstances that occurred, and measure that against what the blame game consists of that we find in all the sacred writs of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam on what happened to these cities of Sodom and Gomorrah and why.
People should be excited to go and see you in Utah. This sounds like a fantastic presentation on a lot of history that's going to kind of change the light and color of how we view that history of Sodom and Gomorrah, because sodomy is kind of a popular word in the English culture, and to change its root meaning, I guess, with history, congratulations.
Well, and on that, as a linguist, if I may,
yes, sir.
It's all been completely misunderstood anyway, right from the get-go. Never is it identified what is meant by sodomy. What is it that is meant when that term is used? When it's associated with Sodom from Sodom and Gomorrah, it's associated with the way the townspeople lusted over these two naked young male angels that God sent to the city, right? And Lot, the nephew of the prophet Abraham, was going to offer his daughters to all the lusting villagers of Sodom so that they wouldn't molest these two young men. That's the story. Read Genesis. Mm-hmm. That is what is stated in Genesis. Lot was going to offer his daughters to all of these, sex-crazed, mad townspeople.
Worst of the worst, yeah.
In order to save the two young naked angels, right? And this is a very strange twist on it all. And so I think what we're about to do begs a revisiting of this whole thing, how the word sodomy came about. Not once does it talk about what we now understand sodomy to mean.
Right.
Nowhere is that account given in the Bible. But the word sodomy grows out of it. Sodomy can be as easily any sexual act that occurred and that was considered to have been occurring in Sodom. Sodom was a decadent city. It was a trade city, a trade center, just like the frankincense centers in the world, one of which did sink in the desert sands according to the Quran, and it has been found, and that's called the city of Iran, also called Ubar. It's been found. It's between Oman and Yemen in the south of the Arabian Peninsula, and that was another one of those trade cities. Point being, when these lost cities actually did exist, it turns out, one, but two, the reason that they were lost has to be revisited. The more we learn about what the circumstances were when these cities were destroyed, the more we have to reconsider God's hand in this picture, relative to geological events.
We look forward to your trip and your guys' presentation. Buff, Rodney, thank you so much. And
by the way, Rodney is also a speaker in the speakers roster. There's a few things he'll be talking about.
It's all Buff. It's all Buff. And we got, there's so much more exciting information to be put out there, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time. Is there anything you'd like to say to your viewers?
You want to drive everybody in Utah crazy? All of you come to Salt Lake City on the 15th of October. It's going to be a bang-up job, and I'm telling you, we are going to rock the Mormon Casbah.
We look forward to it. Thanks for your time, Buff.
Sure enough.
Cheers.